Hello, my name's Cliff Smith. I'm in Orlando, Florida, and I'm doing this video today because I've had a lot of people ask me to share my testimony on video or in a recording so they could share it with other people. I had an experience that has touched a lot of people when I've shared it with them. When I was in Vietnam, I was wounded, and God allowed me to have a glimpse of heaven. So I have been able to share that with quite a few people, and it seems to bless them. So I wanted to be able to put this on video so I can share it with more people. In 1970, I was in the Army, and I was a sergeant and sent to Vietnam. The place I was at was north of Saigon, called Long Binh, and I'd been in Vietnam about 3 months at the time, and we were going out into the jungle around Saigon area to check out a bunker complex that we knew had been there for quite a while, and it had been bombed several times in the past, and we didn't think at that point in time that there was anybody in there, but we were just sent in to check it out and make sure. So we were traveling in platoon size groups, running parallel paths through the jungle. And my platoon had the captain with us, and there was another platoon on our left and a platoon on our right. And we were supposed to be about 1,000 meters apart as we run through the jungle. The day that I was wounded, we had gotten up normally about 7:30 in the morning, and we're taken off through the jungle, and it was pretty dense, so we were having quite a time getting through all the brush, and so we had only gone maybe a couple of miles between breakfast and lunch, and decided to break for a lunch. And as we did, all of a sudden we heard gunfire off to our right, so we figured that our first platoon had run into trouble. And our orders for that day was that we were to go into this area and scout it out, that we weren't to make contact. But apparently that platoon had run into an ambush. So we got on the radio and started calling the first platoon, and Lieutenant Lewis was in charge of that platoon. So we called him up and tried to get at him on the horn, and his radio man finally came on and said, well, he'll be right with you. We ran into some North Vietnamese regulars. So my captain wasn't very pleased that they had made contact. Our orders was to just scout it out, pull back, and call in artillery if we made or saw anything. And so the captain got on the horn and got a hold of the artillery battery and decided to get ready to call in artillery if we had a large group there. And about that time, just all hell seemed to break loose on our first platoon. And we could tell that they had run into a very large force. We could hear rockets and small arms, and so we got back on the radio and decided to find out what their condition was. And Lieutenant Lewis came on and said, well, we ran into 3 North Vietnamese regulars, and they were building this bunker, and we fired on them, and they started running, so the platoon took off in pursuit. So my captain wasn't very pleased at that, so he told Lieutenant Lewis to come back and pull back out of there so we could call in artillery. So we decided to go over to his area and just give them cover as they pulled back. So we got there, and just before we got there, the radio man came on and said that everyone was dead, that he'd gone forward and he couldn't find anyone alive. And so we figured, well, we would have to go on in and pull them out of there. So as we got closer, and it took us about 2 hours to get there, because Lieutenant Lewis had a nickname of Lost Lewis, and he wasn't where he thought he was. And so we took some time to get there and put up a perimeter around his position, and found out that it wasn't quite as bad as the radio man thought it was. That at that point there was only 3 dead, and that most of the other platoon members had been wounded in this ambush that they ran into. So my captain and I and some of the other sergeants were actually putting bodies in the bags, getting ready to pull out of there. We called in helicopter gunships, and they were giving us cover fire. So about that time, I heard this thump at the end of a hollow tube, and I realized that they were bringing mortar in on us. So I started with a chant that incoming mortar, and I knew that I wanted to be out on the perimeter with my men, because the normal procedure was that they would lob mortar in on you, and then they would attack your perimeter. So I just started running as soon as I heard the first round go off, and I figured I had about 10 seconds before it hit. So I was counting down in my mind, 7, 6, 5, 4, and about the time I got to 1, there was no real cover where I was at, and I heard the first round land right about where I had been standing previously. So I decided I better get down on the ground, and at that point, as I was running, I saw this bomb crater in front of me, and it was just a large bush in front of it. So I said, well, all I got to do is jump and clear that bush and land in that crater, and I'll have good cover. So as I jumped, I realized that I didn't feel myself hit the ground. At that point, I really opened my eyes, and I was standing in a hallway or a tunnel, and I just knew at that point in time. I said, "Lord, I'm coming home." Said I knew I was a Christian. I'd been saved at a youth camp when I was 10 years old.